My APE site was the Togolese Association for Family Wellbeing in Lome, Togo. I had concentrated a lot of my work in my MPH degree in West Africa, like my research. So when I had the opportunity to do an APE, I really wanted to go to West Africa. I had been applying to a lot of international internships to no avail. And so I met with my advisor, Dr. Gage, in the IHSD department. And I told her how I was kind of struggling to find an APE placement. And she's from Sierra Leone, so she has a lot of contacts in West Africa. And one of her old advisees, he is from Togo. So she reached out to him and connected us. And then he was so happy to, find an APE placement for me in Togo. So it kind of just happened that way, a little like unnatural, but the national language there is French. So I wanted to improve my French firstly, but I was working for a reproductive health organization, which was, I have found my interest in there. So I just really wanted to gain that field experience and apply like what I had learned in my degree to actually, real public health practice. My project, I was kind of in a few different areas, but I mostly worked with the director for advocacy and resource mobilization. And under him, I conducted a needs assessment at the University of Lome with the college students. They had, the organization has a little kiosk there where they would provide contraceptives and educational materials and stuff like that, but it wasn't getting as much visibility or they weren't getting as much outreach as they wanted. So I conducted a needs assessment and talked with the college students to see, what could make this kiosk more appealing, what could draw people in. And through that, I worked back with the organization and we kind of decided, the actual physical booth wasn't very appealing. It was just kind of like a beige booth. Nobody really knew like what it was advertising. After I left Togo, their plan was to implement changes to make it just visually appealing, and that way people know what they're offering and they can increase their outreach that way. It was mostly youth, so college-age students there, but also like high school students. The organization focused a lot on like maternal health, so providing care to pregnant women or new mothers, but part of my work was mostly more with the youth and helping them with like family planning work. So I worked, like I said, with the director of advocacy and resource mobilization, but there was also another intern there. She was Togolese, so I collaborated with her, and they had another staff member. He was from Canada, actually. So the four of us kind of worked together to develop this needs assessment. We also would write like grants and proposals for expressions of interest for like national sexual and reproductive health initiatives. So it was just kind of a bunch of different areas. We all worked together and collaborated on everything, which definitely made me feel better. I wasn't, going there and doing everything by myself. I had like a lot of support from the team. Just conducting a needs assessment itself, like I had done that in one of my courses, and actually applying it to the real world, it's very similar. I was kind of surprised to be like, oh wow, I've done this before, but now I'm doing it in a real context. So that was really helpful, but also just like in terms of community outreach and how to engage the population and actually work with them. We, in the International Health Department, we talk a lot about that and doing community engaged work. And so all of that knowledge that I had really helped me like effectively work with the community there. There were definitely a lot of things that I was like, I felt confident in because I had that education and that background in it. But with the cultural difference and everything being in French, that was kind of definitely the biggest challenge. But the basic like, okay, this is public health work, this is a family planning organization, the structure of it, it's a nonprofit, all of like that education and how those operate, I had already known, so it helped me going into it. I never practiced writing grants before in my degree, so writing that was definitely new, especially writing that in French. So that was probably the biggest thing, but also just working on a team like that, working in different areas and just having the opportunity to actually like collaborate with people who come from such diverse backgrounds. Yeah, I feel like I really learned a lot from everybody. On one of my last weeks, we actually did a field visit to a rural village like 2 hours north of the capital where I was. And there they have community health workers where they do education and provide contraceptives to people who normally wouldn't have access to it. And so I went on that, and I also went with them to their mobile clinic that they had. And I kind of was just observing while I was doing all of that, but then afterwards I went back to the organization with the people who I had gone with, and we just kind of talked about it and how they could maybe improve their outreach and just being able to reach more people, especially in these really rural areas. Because when we went on these field visits, they were just kind of going to one village and stopping there for the day and then going back to the capital. And in these rural areas, people don't have like reliable forms of transportation. So we talked a lot about like, how can we improve their outreach and access, and instead of going to the one small village all day, maybe going like to a few villages in the same area, or at least like within the same week, rather than just like I think it was once every 3 months that they would do that. So maybe making it a little bit more frequent. When I would be at the college campus talking with all the college students and conducting the needs assessment and everything, I could see that they were getting excited that their voices were being heard, like the things that they wanted and the things that they thought would improve like outreach. Somebody was actually listening to them and was going to implement that. So that was really cool to see, like, okay, I'm talking with these people, I can bring it back to the organization, explain to them, and now they're going to implement that and actually make the change. And it's what the community wanted. So it was cool to see that.